week, a week at the look, one of those. All I know is this is the signature style brought to you by Zales. Sunday's big Clippers showdown. Here's Montrezl Harrell with the swag.
I love the brothers are walking into play against each other.
Brothers walking in together, opposite teams. LeBron in a hoodie. He was all business on Sunday.
8:30 in the morning, Bron.
Okay.
Which outfit you guys feeling the most?
I like the brothers walking in to play each other.
Right?
That's awesome. That respect to the Morris brothers.
I like Montrezl Harrell.
They're not 8 years old. They're not 8 years old.
Montrezl Harrell kind of remind me of Offset right there in that video, right?
Is that something you would have wore?
Nah, never. Isn't it Offset from the Migos, right?
You're asking the wrong person.
You do listen to rap.
If you would have asked me the third Jonas Brothers.
As much as I would love to listen to that for the rest of the show, I'd like to welcome in our Lakers reporter, our insider Dave McMenamin. After a very strong showing this past weekend against two of the league's top teams, the Lakers now 2.5 behind the Bucks for best record in the league. Dave, look, you cover the Lakers daily. Do you think that they are going to go for this? Because it's not just bragging rights, and it's not just about, who can add something to their MVP case. If these two teams end up in the finals, and this is a 7-game series, it's who starts, who finishes, right?
Yeah, the idea of hosting Games 1 and Game 2 at Staples Center and a potential Game 7 against the likes of an opponent like Milwaukee Bucks or Boston Celtics, Toronto Raptors has to mean something. And it's 20 games that you have to manage. Now, I don't think it's impossible to do both. I think you can allow LeBron to continue to play while caring about his body and going for the #1 seed. Now, you're going to have to see more performances like we saw in the third quarter of the Clippers game, where they actually extended the lead and got back into the game while LeBron was getting some rest. And Anthony Davis has admitted that that is kind of what this final portion of the season will be about, trying to get better in the moments when LeBron is either resting full games or resting parts of games, because in the playoffs, he's going to play more minutes, but he's not going to play 48 minutes.
Why are you shaking your head?
Because I want to say this. I want to say this. I want everyone to listen to me here. In Milwaukee, this is the thing. They're trying to prove to Giannis to stay here. You can win a championship here. You can win multiple MVPs here. If they let that slide by half a game, by 1 game, and all of a sudden they're playing against the Lakers in the finals, and they do, because they have a lead now, and you don't have home court, LeBron, let's say, sneaks in and wins the MVP because that's one of the things that they're using as like who has the best record, tougher conference. Imagine that. That will affect Giannis. Like, if Giannis loses a championship, loses the MVP because they took their foot off the gas, that is one step closer to him possibly deciding to go someplace else. So if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you get the #1 seed overall, make sure you have home court advantage, and then you add another, you check another box for his MVP case. You don't want to take that off and give that opportunity to Bron right there.
So what about on the Lakers side, though?
On the Lakers side, Bron wants the MVP, and they're going to keep playing until they feel like it's out of reach, right? If all of a sudden they're down 3 or 4 games with 5 to go or 4 to go, then they pull it off. But if it's within reach, you're 2.5 games away with however many games left. No, you keep going until all of a sudden it's out of reach.
And to your point, and Kendrick, I'll interrupt real quick. LeBron was listed with the sore groin and questionable for tonight, but he told reporters this morning he will play against the Brooklyn Nets tonight. Yeah. So obviously,
rest will be used against him. Rest would be used against him in his MVP chase, so he's not going to rest.
Although you guys both played with LeBron, and Kendrick, you played in games where, to Dave's point, sometimes if he would sit a little bit longer, sometimes would not, in those previous seasons, play as hard, like on defense or in some of the other positions that he would rest during games kind of thing. He hasn't been doing that this season.
No, he hasn't, but his minutes are down. They're the lowest it's been in his career. And when you look at LeBron James, I'm never worried about if he's getting rest. One thing about this guy, he's the ultimate professional outside of basketball. So I wouldn't change up anything if I'm the Lakers. I would actually chase for the best record, for the simple fact, right now the Lakers are playing inspiring basketball. They're playing the best basketball in the NBA. Winners, 10 out of 11 games. Their role players are starting to find their identities. I wouldn't change nothing because they're peaking at the right time, and the playoffs are right around the corner. So I would keep everything the same and just keep pushing forward.
Keep your foot on the gas until it's done.
I think for both of these teams, it is a tangible advantage that they're chasing. It's not like some big idea of 73 wins or 70 wins.
Right.
It's not even just, would this be another check in the MVP category? It is, are you hosting games 1 and 2 and game 7 of the finals, which is huge if these two teams face each other.
The MVP is more important to, it's more important to Bron, but it's more important to Milwaukee keeping Giannis.
I don't think he's You think that he's going to make his decision or not based on whether he wins MVP?
No, but I think that goes to it's like, yo, you can win multiple MVPs here. You can have the best record in the NBA here. They're going to have to sell themselves to him in free agency, even though that's his home. They still have to sell himself. And if he loses out on a championship and an MVP because they pulled the full off the gas, they can't talk about that in that meeting.
Well, the stakes are high.
Yes.
Whether they're that high or just very, very, very high, they're high.
This the GM RJ today.
Exactly.
Former Milwaukee Buck RJ.
I want to take you to a review in the first overtime, because there were two, friends, of the Hornets-Hawks last night. Terry Rozier getting a foul call as he drives to the hoop in the final second of play. So the referees reviewed it. They had their own review, and the call stood. Then Atlanta's Lloyd Pierce issues a coach's challenge. And somehow, in the second video review, they ruled that Rozier was not fouled. The game went to a second overtime, so they basically took him off the line. He was going to take foul shots that, in theory, at least one of them would have gone in, and they could have ended at just one overtime. But they took him off the line, went to a second overtime. The Hawks ended up winning. So this was a savvy coach's challenge, right, by Atlanta, because it won them a game that they probably would not have won. How do you feel about coaches?
No, I think
change anything?
I think I think when the referees looked at it, I think they might have been looking at something different than when a coach calls a timeout and says, "I want you to look at X."
Okay.
That's two different things. And so if they're pointing out one thing, if they're looking for one thing and they're like, "Hey, the call stands," but then the coach says, "I want you to look at his left arm and see what he did there," then that's probably what ended up changing it and
So
saying
do
that
you
he wasn't
think
fouled.
this was a good example of coaching
Great
challenge?
example.
I think it was a great example. It's almost like being in the courtroom, two lawyers, right?
Right.
You get your closing statement.
I like that idea.
Closing arguments, yeah.
So they gave the coach from the Hornets. He challenged. Then Lloyd bounced back and challenged. Here's the thing. Somebody in the officiating crew lied under oath because how did you miss this from the first challenge? And then
He's looking at the arm. When he's doing this, he's saying, "Look at that arm." He's saying, "Look at that arm," and they see that arm is what made him lose balance, what made Graham lose balance, which ultimately made Rozier trip.
I've never seen a review of a review.
So the tough part about Coach's Challenge is that it's a great idea in terms of trying to get it right.
Yeah.
So the true winner walks away from the arena in the right ledger. The problem is that no one quite understands it right now. Like, there's only three type of calls in that situation, the last 2 minutes of overtime, that allow a coach to use a coach's challenge. Usually it's supposed to happen in a booth. Fans don't know that. That's not colloquial. We don't have a general grasp of that. So it leaves the people. It leaves the people in the arena being like, "What's going on here?"
Okay.
Dictionary session during the commercial break, but that is a very good point, and it does kind of create more time. All right. The NBA announced last night that it is closing access to its locker rooms, allowing in only players and essential personnel. The league made the decision with the NHL, Major League Baseball, and Major League Soccer as concerns over the coronavirus increase. They said in a joint statement, quote, "Given the issues that can be associated with close contact in post and pregame settings, all team locker rooms and clubhouses will only be open to players and essential employees of team facilities until further notice." That means, of course, media access is going to be maintained, but designated in locations outside of the locker room and clubhouse settings. So, obviously, limiting reporters' access to players. Dave, you were a reporter. Locker room access is a huge part of your job. And I always like to point out, your job is not to just get information for yourself. Your job is to get information to tell all of these people what's going on.
There's another word for you. I'm a conduit.
Don't do that. I know that word.
Okay,
I know that word.
Now, I never want to miss the forest for the trees and suggest that, oh my gosh, this is going to hamper me to do my job and I could potentially be putting people at risk. Health and safety of everyone involved in the NBA is first and foremost. And it's going to be a wait-and-see approach. We'll see how it goes tonight at the game and having this 6 to 8 feet spacing between the reporters and players. Maybe it's going to work out swimmingly. The concern moving forward, beyond the health concern, is that locker room access is important to develop rapport with players and unearth stories that you wouldn't normally find. Now, I can come up with a concept for a story and go try to interview a player, and sometimes that's going to be awesome. But stories are also unearthed by just having conversations, get to know a person. Like a couple years ago, I wrote a story about LeBron James's problem with what Charles Barkley was saying about him on air. That wasn't stemmed from me saying, "Hey, LeBron, let me ask you about Charles Barkley." It was
cold.
We talked about things that we saw on air, and then it kind of developed over time. Richard Jefferson hosts a podcast, and that through those conversations, all sorts of stories come out. And that's the only way I think you get to know person to person, reporter to player. if you get rid of that, it's going to be hard to get the best stories for the fans to read.
Absolutely. And, there's more about this, too, because the NBA has a call between league officials and team owners scheduled on Wednesday to discuss next steps. The NBA told teams last week they needed to at least prepare for the possibility of playing games in empty arenas. Now, LeBron James notably originally said last week he does not want to play in empty arenas. He had different comments today. Take a listen.
Well, it's funny because when I was asked the question of would you play without no fans, I had no idea that it was actually a conversation going on behind closed doors about the particular virus. Obviously, I would be very disappointed at, not having the fans, because that's what I play for. I play for my family. I play for my fans. They're saying no one could actually come to the game if they decide to go to that point. So I'd be disappointed in that. But at the same time, you gotta listen to the people that's keeping a track on what's going on, and if they feel like it's best for the safety of the players, the safety of the franchise, safety of the league, to mandate that, then we all listen to it.
All right, so as a former player, how would you feel about playing a game in an empty arena?
Well, nobody would want that. But, one thing that, Perk and we can all agree on is, like, we used to always joke we would play this game for free.
Right.
We would be in this park playing this game. We would do this any place, in a YMCA, in a gym. Players are always looking to play pickup games at UCLA. Like, there's no fans there. There's no nothing there. And this is an opportunity. We're only in this spot because of a crisis. So we can be sensitive to that and say, look, if one player gets sick, we all both know that if one player gets a flu on the team, like 7 guys ultimately get it over a 2-week span because we're touching the same ball. We're all drinking water. It's just part of it. And that's just a part of the precautions, and I understand it.
I'm just like, I got to play in front of fans. That's just like the argument, the debate we had earlier today when we was talking about home court advantage. You have home court advantage because of your fans. Your fans give you that energy. Your fans, you have the love for the game, but playing for the fans brings it out of you. And by the way, that just shows how powerful LeBron James is. Because let me tell you why he backtracked. Adam Silver hit him and was like, hey, LeBron, I need you to say this, man. I need for you to be on board. He's like, I got you.
I know you wouldn't like it, Perk, and obviously I know you feel also that if you don't want a bunch of people getting sick watching you play, that's not what you're looking for. Do you think it would feel weird to just be playing in the silence? You can hear every squeak of the sneaker, right?
Nobody wants to play.
You can feel.
Nobody wants to play, but it's done out of necessity, not because it's just like, hey, you know what? What is it going to be like with no fans today? No, I understand if people are trying to do it for
Here's what I know. I know that if we broadcast games without fans in the arena and people hear what I used to hear when I was a sideline reporter sitting courtside, they're going to have that bleep button ready.
Oh, they're going to have ambient noise.
Are foul-mouthed.
They're going to say, no, y'all, them. I'm retired.
Dave, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you back here very soon. Coming up, we'll take a look at Perk's recent tweets. Because we're going to play a little round of retweet or delete. Wait till you hear what he's got to say about, so many people. James Harden. Jump is going to be right back. That's his, I was going to say, that's like his Purell. He just runs his hair, answers his hair. Goes. I am here with 2016 NBA champion Richard Jefferson. 2008 champion Kendrick Perkins. Kendrick's a graduate of Cass University. You just had to go to Arizona.
Yeah, I just had to go to Arizona. It's cool.
You still got paid, though. But you keep doing
No.
And on with our show. Coming up, the Lakers are 2.5 games from the best record in the league. Will they chase the top seed or rest their top players down the stretch? Our Lakers insider Dave McMenamin will join us later to discuss. First, though, Pascal Siakam's life was not supposed to turn out like this. When he was 11 years old, his father sent him to a seminary in Cameroon to learn to become a priest. Siakam didn't start playing organized basketball until he was nearly 18 years old. The first NBA game he ever saw live was the first one he played in as a rookie. That Siakam even made it as a pro is extraordinary. That he went on to become a starter on the team that won the NBA title last year, a starter on the All-Star team this year, all of that is astounding. So I guess it makes sense that he is part of Toronto putting together a season that is all about overcoming long odds, a season which only grew in lore last night. The Raptors were playing in Utah against the 4 seed in the West, at altitude, on the second night of a back-to-back, at the end of a long road trip. They continue to have a laundry list of injuries. Marc Gasol and Fred VanVleet were both out. And Norm Powell, who had just won Eastern Conference Player of the Week honors less than 6 hours before tip-off, promptly sprained his ankle in the opening minutes of the game. And yet, the Raptors battled, because that is what they do. Led by Siakam, because now That is what he does. Despite often being in foul trouble, Siakam had 27 points, including a handful of these turnaround jumpers, and they all went down smooth. I mean, he's not consistent game to game with his shot yet, but he is 6'9", so people just wait until he is. Siakam also dealing all night as well, finished with 8 assists. None prettier than this one, drawing the second defender, kicking it out to Serge for that open three.
Yeah. Point guard.
Right?
Looking good.
Now, Siakam's certainly the star, but it was a group effort. OG Anunoby, just a dog defensively. Look at this block on Rudy Gobert. This kept it from being a one-possession game. And then, you know, a little dust up between the two. Gobert grabbing him and Anunoby slipping him an elbow. Both of them got tossed, which Gobert was not pleased about. Take a listen here.
You got tossed for that?
The guy that's getting paid to protect us, the players, didn't do his job. So, you know, I just, it was a little altercation, and we both got ejected when I didn't do anything back, pretty much, you know, which I don't understand. I don't think it makes sense to me. But next time I do justice myself.
Next time, I'll do justice myself. Sounds like a line from a French Western, if that's even maybe a thing. I don't know, maybe. Anyway, the real punctuation point of the game came from the 33-year-old Lowry, who played 36 minutes Sunday and 43 minutes Monday. Still had enough left in the tank for this pull-up three over Mike Conley to seal Toronto's win. Now, after the game, this picture of Lowry crossed Getty Images. It pretty much tells you everything you need to know about Kyle and about this Raptors team. This is a group that relishes all of the long odds it faces, and maybe that makes sense. Maybe if you grow up thinking you're going to become a priest, it's not so strange to go around expecting miracles. Richard, I know that you didn't grow up thinking that you were going to be a priest because really at all. But what do you think is the ceiling for the Raptors this season?
I think there's a small part that can make it to the finals. A small part. I believe they can make it to the finals. I think realistically for them, I think it's conference finals. I think if you're looking at them having to play Boston and then Milwaukee, I think it would be tough for them to do. They would get worn down. But I've been impressed and I've been surprised with their performance. But ultimately, I think they've had a great season, and I think they're going to have a good postseason.
Well, I mean, is it a great time for me to jump on my high horse?
Yeah,
yes, please.
Go for it.
Because before the season, I picked Lakers, Raptors, finals.
You did.
And when you look at this...
How did you come to that? I'm impressed.
Because when you look at this Raptor team, they're deep. They're well coached by Nick Nurse, who I believe should win Coach of the Year this year. And multiple guys have stepped up. They are battle-tested, and they have different guys that step up every single night. They're under great leadership with Kyle Lowry, and Siakam is becoming a star right in front of our eyes. We just don't talk about them enough. And when you look at them, they battled through injuries. They're ahead of what they were last year. And to me, they can match up with anybody in the Eastern Conference. So they have different bodies that they could throw at Giannis if they happen to play the Bucks. And I'm just riding my horse. And by the way, I picked Siakam to make the All-Star team this year, too. And he did that.
You don't have to be humble as we continue on the rest of this show.
Wow.
Look, I will say, by the way, if you have made the All-Star team as a starter and you were a starter on an NBA champion team, you're not becoming a star. You are a star, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That is definitely the real deal. I do want to revisit on something I touched upon at the top. You were very surprised, Richard, that Rudy Gobert got tossed for what happened there, that little altercation between the two of them, and he said, next time,
wow, he threw an elbow right there.
I will do justice myself.
To me, there's nothing about that altercation that says Rudy Gobert should be ejected.
That was
Zero.
his point. His point was that OG threw the elbow. And
if you watch 10 seconds, that 10-second clip that we just watched, I'm sorry, Rudy. And again, what we don't know if Rudy had a technical prior. That's the only thing that I don't know. But if that was the first
altercation, Steve can tell you.
Producer Steve, let us know. Bear down. I just don't know. I wouldn't. I've seen you do more in warm-ups with your own teammates.
Why are you telling on me today, RJ? Listen, this is my thing. Whether or not he got ejected or not, I want to go to a whole nother narrative.
Okay, fine. Here we go.
I mean, it's not like he was on the court doing anything. He had 6 points and 4 rebounds. Like, at the end of the day, no, because I'm very disappointed right now in the Utah Jazz because I had them on your show as my dark horse contender. And since the All-Star break, I'm looking at Rudy.
That dark horse is a dead horse.
Yeah, it's dead horse. And he was averaging 15 points and 14 rebounds. Now he's averaging 12 and 9. And let's be real, right? he talking about taking matters in his own hands. Who knows today's league is soft. Like, nobody's going to bust a grape in the fruit fight, and he's not going to pour milk on cereal. So at the end of the day, we know this all the front. He's not taking matters in his own hands. And I told you, Rachel, I tweeted out today, I'm in rap form today.
That's right.
I'm in rap
Get
form
ready.
today.
Perk's got all the takes. How do you feel about Rudy Gobert?
Look,
Who, by the way, made the All-Star team as well.
Well, no, and I believe Rudy deserved to be an All-Star. I love what he does defensively, but it's okay. We can look at multiple different players across the league that are having a tough stretch right now, and Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz are a part of it. But Rudy, as a leader, needs to start putting more expectation on himself. I understand he had to talk about being thrown out, but ultimately he needs to step up. We need to see more from Mitchell. We need to see more from the entire group down the line if they want to. I don't want to say like save their season, but if they want to make the run that we believe they can.
Because once you become an all-star, that pressure is a lot different, right? Like going into.
He did not have a tech before. That entire that's a travesty. That's a travesty. If that entire exchange is what got somebody
You
thrown out here.
still talking about the ejection. I'm talking about the player of the Jazz.
I've moved past that. I'm telling you right
He's
now.
moved past it, back to the place that he was to begin with.
Come on, man.
There you go. Look, we just saw, too, some video file of Rudy when he has had his more emotive moments.
Be emotional.
But I
No
think
problem.
he wishes he was more emotive if he was going to get tossed anyway. I don't know. Coming up, Jamal Murray was called for a foul on what would have been a poster jam last night.
Oh, my. So, two bad calls.
So
That's crazy.
this sparked a lot of controversy.
I wish they
among
would
the Nuggets.
have thrown him
That's
out.
what Blake
We have
Griffin did to
so
me.
many
I didn't
more
get off this foul.
posterizations than dunk
No, what was you saying?
Give me my money.
You yell too loud, they're going to take your
Yeah,
money.
they're going to take my money, but it was worth it.
I want to talk about the Bucks, guys. They shocked everyone last night when they released the following starting lineup before their game against the Nuggets. So in that game that we just saw, Pat Connaughton, Sterling Brown, Wesley Matthews, Thanasis Antetokounmpo, and Robin Lopez. You may notice these are none of their original official starters. Now, Giannis obviously missing the game because he's got that knee sprain he's dealing with, and I guess they decided everybody gets a rest after losing to the Suns. Is this a sign that the Bucks are officially in cruise control mode for the rest of the regular season? They would now have to run the table, win out, to win 70 games this year now that they've had these two losses.
I'm going to say no, this doesn't. And this is not about a 70-win thing to me. I think as a team and as an organization, just follow me here. I feel like they feel the Lakers and LeBron James trying to win an MVP, right? They feel them putting on that pressure. So if you don't end up with the best record and the Lakers surpass you for the best record, that will be held against you in a lesser conference. That will be held against you in the MVP race. So their goal is still to have the best record in the NBA, and I think that's what they're going to chase. Until they get to that spot, they'll probably dial it back. 70 wins, that's done. It's making sure that Giannis and the Bucks have the best record to help his case for MVP. Because if you don't do that, you're doing him a disservice.
Well, I don't know, Richard. I don't know if I'm going with them worrying about the MVP thing for Giannis. I think they got a bigger goal at hand, and that's the biggest goal is to reach the finals and win the championship. And when you look at it, to me, I think Mike Budenholzer is doing a brilliant thing by resting guys right now. Like, at the end of the day, I don't think no one is going to catch them at the number one seed. And it's giving other guys.
The Lakers are 2.5 games back.
No, but I'm talking. But I mean,
okay.
in the East, though. So
no one's catching them out.
Right. So they're gonna.
But your goals aren't the Eastern Conference. Your goals are the entire championship. So you want the home court.
But you also know that it's a marathon and not a sprint. You are a champion, Richard. You know this, right? So at the end of the day, what I'm telling you is that it's good to get other guys repetition because you do know, you do know and do understand, like you did. And when y'all came back down 3-1 in the finals, you was a key piece to that. Like, they switched it up. He inserted you into the lineup, and you were ready. Right, you were ready to play, and then all of a sudden, you came back, smacked up the Warriors. Am I right?
You're not going to get me into any battle with any Warriors.
I'm not getting it. I'm just saying. But that's what happened.
I understand your point. You want to give other guys opportunities over the course of the season to make sure if someone goes down, if something happens, other guys are ready to step in and step up.
And also, to your rest point, I mean, you experienced this on your title run. How many games did you guys play in the first round when you won the NBA title in 2008?
7.
How many in the second round when you won the NBA title?
7.
How many in the conference finals?
6.
I think you guys played the max, didn't you?
No, we played the Pistons.
Okay.
Luckily, Chauncey he strained his groin. You know, Tim Duncan always say you need a little bit of luck.
You need a little bit of luck.
Yeah,
Right.
to win the championship, you need a little bit of luck.
And how many in the NBA Finals that year?
We went 6.
Right.
We
win a lot of games.
We smacked up the Lakers, though.
I'm staying out of that one.
Yeah, but
My point is you played a lot.
We
Now,
did.
I don't know whether the Bucks are going to play that many. I don't think they're going 7 in the first round. But I do see your point. And resting everyone on one night, you get that game out of the way and those days out of the way.
But you know what else, though, Rachel? Like, we had multiple guys, Rich, that stepped up, though. Like Leon Poe, Big Baby, Eddie House, Tony Allen. Like, they were able because they got repetition throughout the course of the season. That's all I'm saying.
No sweeps. There you go. Coming up next, but they won the ring, and that's what counts. Should the Lakers go all in on catching the Bucks? We're going to look at this from the other side about whether they should load manage LeBron and AD or they should go for that best record because, again, home court advantage in the finals is a factor both of these teams are thinking about. Stick around for that. First, though, head over to the ESPN app to read Nick Friedell's piece on how bobbleheads have become the NBA's biggest little status symbol. This is so much fun. I really encourage everyone to go read it. Check out the video. It's awesome. Fun fact, Chauncey Billups, the first NBA player to get his own bobblehead back in the year 2000. Sunday, the Rockets lost to the Magic by 20. Both Harden and Westbrook in the lineup. Harden scored 23 on 6 for 19 shooting, but something about Harden's performance rubbed Kendrick the wrong way because he tweeted the following. I'm starting to question if, you know what, I'm going to have you read this. Go ahead, Kendrick.
I'm starting to question if James Harden got the hunger for winning. It's unexcusable how he's been playing lately and as if he don't care about winning.
Boom.
Did I do a good job?
You did. It's like we were all there, right
my
with
first
you.
time.
On the phone, like on the phone as you punched the button. Okay, retweet or delete. What are you putting up?
I'm retweeting.
What about you? What do you think he should do?
I'm a delete.
I'm a hater. Tell me why.
I'm a hater. I didn't just tweet that.
Okay, well, go ahead.
This is why I'm going to say that. It is a long season. And when we want to talk about usage rate and what James Harden did over the first 50 games, he's going to go through a stretch. But that was part of the criticism. It's like, yo, this is not sustainable. You playing one-on-one for 46 minutes every single night, even with Russell on your team, it's going to be hard. So now he's going through a stretch here where he's struggling. He did the same thing last year. So am I going to blame him and say this? No, I just don't think that they're playing great basketball. And I think he'll be better in 5 games. Maybe he'll have a couple of stretches where he's struggling. But no, I'm not gonna just jump off the bandwagon.
I'm not jumping off the bandwagon.
Sounds like you are.
No, I'm not. But when I go on national television and say that this is probably the most dynamic backcourt in NBA history, here's why. You got 2 Finals MVPs that are still in their prime, right? I mean, 2 MVPs. Former MVPs that are still in their prime. When you look at James Harden and Russell Westbrook, the Rockets made the trade for them to put them in position to be successful. So they're banking their heads and saying that, hey, stop our 2 guys every night. Russell Westbrook has been bringing it since the trade.
It wasn't even that bad a game James played that particular night.
No, he's played worse.
I'm talking about over the whole. No, but Rachel, I'm talking about like the James that we've grown to love. Like right now, we need those 50 pieces.
Okay.
And we haven't seen one in a while.
I want to move on to the next tweet. After the Nets suddenly parted ways with head coach Kenny Atkinson, there was immediate speculation where Kenny would land his next coaching job. Kendrick took it a step further. He demanded one particular team do the right thing. They kicked that guy out. I'm just saying. Kendrick, please read.
Knicks need to hire Kenny Atkinson ASAP. The Nets' rebuild strategy is what the Knicks have been ducking forever. If they want to make this right, they need to hire him and do it now.
All right, what do we got? Wow.
He is hate
Delete.
today.
This is why you have to delete this.
Why?
Part of the success that they've had in the rebuild is because you had the GM from the Spurs system, you had the coach from the Spurs system, and they all worked the similar thing that they did with the Spurs.
So you don't think that Leon Rose could work with a coach who is...
I'm not saying Leon Rose could, but if Kenny comes in and says, hey, this is what we need to do, it's not the same group. It's not the same Spurs mentality. Yes, he's a coach coming in, but Leon Rose might have a different plan. He might have a different agenda. So we can't just say hire somebody because of what he did. It was a group that did that in Brooklyn. A group did it.
But at the end of the day, he had to coach them, Richard.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
Richard, that's like saying that no one should hire a former Spurs assistant coach because they're not also getting Greg Popovich.
I'm not saying it that. I'm saying if you're going to credit the success, it was a Spurs model that they followed from top to bottom. You're going to put a Spurs coach there without a Spurs-type GM. That's not the same thing.
I disagree.
Okay, that's why I'm deleting it and you're retweeting it.
Because I'm retweeting it because what he did was, it's like almost like a David Blatt situation. He was brought in to rebuild a winning culture, and he did that. Like with no superstars at the time, like Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, that a lot of teams didn't want. Like he built confidence in these guys, and they won last year.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they still in the playoff hunt without Kyrie and Kevin Durant, and they part ways in the middle.
I think Kenny Atkinson, let me first say this, should 100% get a job. And very soon, if that man wants to coach, he needs to be coaching. I think he's a great coach and he's an even better person. I'm just saying, throwing him to the Knicks and saying, do what you did with the Nets, it's different if you don't have the same mentality down the line.
Still could be a good move for them.
Could be a good coach. I think he could be a good coach. I'm just saying it's
Our
not the same.
final submission for Retweet or Delete comes from
I don't know what it is, but I'm
renowned American philosopher Ice-T,
It's so crazy.
who dropped some commentary on the generational differences between his era and the modern era. Ice-T tweets he's unfortunately not in the studio to read this one himself. He said, I was raised by OGs. Some of you were raised by IG. I understand. Retweet or delete, gentlemen?
I'm retweeting.
Retweeting. We both grumpy. Part of the reason why we're grumpy is because our OGs were grumpy.
Absolutely.
Our OGs were grumpy. They were mean to us. He came straight out of high school, right? Like we had mean people that just put a certain toughness. You played every single night.
Right.
All the OGs that I played with, if they could go, they went every single night. Again, game changes, but it's the same.
No, I'm retweeting. And you're right. Like, when I came in 03, I was under the coach of old school Jim O'Brien. Like, we were taping up for shoot-around.
Shoot-around.
Like, shoot-around was practice. Like, I'm with Tony.
3 or 4 double days in training camp.
Tony Delk, Eric Williams, Gary Payton, like Vin Baker. I had real vets that was like, nah, young fella, you about to punch in this clock.
Oh, I played with Alonzo Mourning, who was playing through a kidney transplant.
This is
Like,
amazing.
these guys just show up no matter what.
Right.
This is cool. So during the commercial, these guys will tell the story of how they both walked uphill to school both ways. I'm going to spare you guys that.
In the sun
But
in Phoenix.
up next, you stick around because we'll talk about Luka, whether he already is demanding or is deserving superstar treatment from refs. Stick around. First, though, it's time for our second distant replay of the day. This one, 2013, featuring DeAndre